All right, let's just jump right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a medical mystery that is, well, it's equal parts tragic and incredibly fascinating from a biological standpoint. We're looking at a documented case study of a 44-year-old guy. We'll just call him M.A. Now, M.A. was someone who deeply believed in the power of holistic practices to heal the mind, body, and spirit. But a specific sequence of events, which were definitely rooted in good intentions but pushed to absolute excess, ended up causing a devastating medical emergency.
And that brings us right to the core of today's explainer. What actually happens to the human body when you attempt to macrodose a notoriously potent forest fungus? We're going to track exactly what unfolded inside Mao's organs, literally minute by agonizing minute, so we can understand how a quest for optimal health went so fatally wrong. So, part 1, the accidental macrodose and a holistic practice. To really get this case, we have to start with the setup. M.A. and his roommate, Brendan, were both big into holistic medicine. One evening, Brendan gets a delivery of some special online-bought mushrooms. Now, M.A. had heard of microdosing, sure, but he had a completely different philosophy. He figured that to see the bigger picture, dose absolutely matters. His logic was basically, hey, if it's natural, it can't be bad for you. So he decided that only a huge macrodose would do the trick. Now, when you or I hear special mushrooms, we probably immediately think of classic magic mushrooms, right? Psilocybe cubensis, the ones with psilocybin. But that is absolutely not what M.A. ordered. The package was labeled Amanita muscaria. This specific fungus doesn't have psilocybin in it at all. Instead, it is packed to the brim with highly potent neuroactive chemicals. The Amanita genus itself is incredibly volatile. I mean, it's wild. While Mechanicus consumed the neuroactive Muscaria variant, this mushroom has some incredibly dangerous cousins. Take Amanita phalloides, for instance, better known as the death cap. It's fatally toxic to the liver. Actually, back in 2016, a family in California accidentally picked and ate death caps. It led to emergency liver transplants and permanent brain damage. Now, Midanay's mushroom wasn't going to destroy his liver, but as we're about to see, its neuroactive power was immense.
What followed was an agonizing 9-hour descent. At first, M and Brendan just ate one single cap each, and they felt pretty good. Their limbs felt heavy, kind of like roots growing down into the ground. But M, remember, he wanted that macro dose, so he immediately ate at least 6 more caps and then laid down to sleep. As the hours ticked by, things got weird. M started twitching into these bizarre, distortive positions. Eventually, he wakes up, violently shivering, totally huddled over, and just empties his stomach into the toilet. Brendan wraps him in a blanket, figuring he just needed to sleep it off and get warm. But then the crisis actually hit. 9 hours after ingestion, M silently stopped breathing. And by the time the ambulance arrived and loaded him in, his heart completely stopped beating.
Let's move to section 2, the chemistry of coma and unbalancing the brain. To understand how a mushroom can literally cause a grown man's heart to stop, we've got to zoom way in to the microscopic level. See, our brains operate on this very delicate seesaw. On one side, you have glutamate. This is your brain's excitation pathway. It keeps you awake, alert, agitated. Fun fact, it's the exact same mechanism that MSG in food uses to excite your taste buds. Now, on the other side of the seesaw, we have GABA, which handles depression, rest, and sleep. Usually, these two are in perfect harmony. But a massive dose of Amanita muscaria, it violently throws this entire balance off.
The fatal chemical reaction actually kicks off in the gut. Raw Amanita muscaria contains a compound called ibotenic acid. This stuff severely stimulates those excitatory glutamate receptors we just talked about, which causes the initial confusion and severe agitation. But here is the crazy biological twist. Inside the body, ibotenic acid is broken down and converted into muscimol, and muscimol acts directly on the GABA pathway, the exact side of the seesaw that forces sleep and coma.
Because Massa took that massive 7-cap dose, he accidentally unleashed an overwhelming unchecked flood of muscimol. It completely slammed his GABA inhibitory pathways. It overactivated his brain's rest and digest signals to such a crazy extreme that the signal reached all the way down into his brainstem. And your brainstem regulates your automatic functions, right? Like breathing. The muscimol suppressed those regulatory centers so heavily that it essentially forced his lungs to just power down and stop breathing entirely.
Which brings us to section 3, starving the brain and the CPR rescue.
Jumping back to the physical world, Brendan didn't actually realize Emma had stopped breathing for several minutes. That slight delay initiated a catastrophic biological crisis. Because he wasn't taking in any air, Emma developed severe hypoxemia. That's a critical lack of oxygen in the blood, meaning his highly energy-intensive organs were rapidly beginning to starve.
Now, when Ma's heart finally stopped in the ambulance, the paramedics immediately started CPR. But here is a truly terrifying medical reality. Typically, your brain receives up to 20% of your heart's normal blood output. But CPR, even when it's done absolutely perfectly, only generates about 25% of normal blood flow. It is the absolute best we can do in an emergency, but practically, it meant that even during this frantic rescue, Ma's oxygen-starved brain was still rapidly dying.
Without oxygen, the enormously metabolically active tissue of the heart starts quickly building up acid and waste. The muscle becomes so stressed that it actually stops fully contracting. It basically just shakes in place, totally unable to pump blood, before failing entirely. The paramedics had to put a tube down Aime's throat to breathe for him, and they had to push heavy medicines to force his blood pressure back up, literally just to get his heart beating again.
Moving on to Section 4, the reperfusion paradox and a cruel irony.
You'd probably think that getting the heart beating and oxygen flowing again is the ultimate victory, but it actually introduces this terrifying false hope known as reperfusion injury. Think of it like this. While the brain was starved of oxygen, the cells couldn't maintain their fluid balance, so they started to swell up. At the same time, calcium flooded into the mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of the cells. So when the paramedics successfully restarted his heart, oxygen rushed back into the brain. But that new oxygen immediately reacted with the trapped calcium, creating free radicals and chemicals that severely damaged the cells from the inside out. And to make matters worse, sensing all this massive cellular stress, the body's own immune system rushed in and attacked the damaged brain tissue.
To combat this devastating secondary wave of destruction, the ICU team initiated a desperate medical intervention. They literally placed bags of ice all over MA to drastically lower his core body temperature. Chilling the body like this is actually a proven way to help preserve the delicate blood-brain barrier and limit the extreme inflammation caused by the initial cardiac arrest.
But tragically, despite the cooling and the advanced life support, the clinical findings were incredibly grim. MA remained completely unconscious. He didn't flinch or withdraw at all when presented with terribly noxious smells. He showed zero pain response to pinpricks on his hands. And most devastatingly of all, when doctors shined a light into his eyes, his pupils didn't constrict. That lack of reflex is a stark, undeniable clinical indicator that his brainstem was simply no longer functioning. The damage was irreversible.
Section 5, the fake edibles epidemic and a modern danger.
Now, MA's case is exceptionally rare because he consumed pure, dried Amanita muscaria. But recently, a massive new risk has flooded the market. In 2024, across the United States, these brightly colored packages of microdose mushroom gummies and chocolates have started popping up in gas stations and smoke shops, often buzzing with catchwords like Amanita. And these commercially sold products recently resulted in 180 poisonings, 73 hospitalizations, and 3 suspected deaths.
So what's actually inside these packages? Well, FDA-associated laboratories investigated and made some pretty shocking discoveries. They found synthetic hallucinogens like 4-ACO-DMT. They found psilocin, which is a classic magic mushroom chemical. Unbelievably, they even found pregabalin, which is a prescription nerve medication known as Lyrica. And honestly, the cruelest irony of all this, they often found absolutely zero trace of authentic muscimol or ibotenic acid. People buying these products were trying to avoid big pharma and find a natural holistic remedy, but they were secretly being dosed with a complete grab bag of random synthetic chemicals and prescription drugs.
You might be wondering, why does this fake edible epidemic even exist? It really comes down to biological reality. The mushroom cap you see above ground is just a tiny reproductive organ of a massive, incredibly complex fungal network that's embedded deep in the Earth's ecosystem. Because of this, pure Amanita muscaria is incredibly difficult to cultivate indoors. Mass-producing genuine Amanita gummies in a commercial factory setting is highly, highly unlikely. And that is exactly why these shady manufacturers resort to cutting their products with synthetic research chemicals.
Returning to our central case, MDA didn't consume a gas station fake. His toxicology screen showed no other substances at all. After 9 days on life support in the ICU, with absolutely zero neurological improvement, his life support was tragically discontinued. An autopsy confirmed extensive post-cardiac arrest brain injury. His death was officially ruled an accidental poisoning caused entirely by pure, dried Amanita muscaria.
Matt and Brendan had health beliefs that were genuinely rooted in good intentions. They just wanted to connect with nature and heal. But Maz's hubris, his absolute insistence that he needed a macro dose to see the bigger picture, resulted in a fatal overdose of a tremendously powerful neurotoxin. It serves as a stark, unforgiving reminder. If you believe something to be your medicine, you absolutely must treat it with the respect and dosage caution of a medicine, because biology doesn't care about your intentions.
Which leaves us with this final, powerful thought to reflect on today. If you don't need to put it in your body, don't put it in your body. Whether it's a mysterious gas station gummy filled with synthetic chemicals or a deeply misunderstood fungus pulled directly from the forest floor, bodily autonomy comes with biological risk. Respect the chemistry, or you just might find out the hard way. It really begs the question, how many other trendy, natural remedies are hiding a dark, biological reality? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.